Wealth doesn't belong to those who work the hardest. If that were true, teachers and laborers would be billionaires. But they're not. Riches follow power. Those who command, who shape the rules, who dare to move first. Machiavelli revealed this centuries ago. Destiny rewards the audacious, not the obedient. Most people remain poor because they're trapped in the wrong game. The question is, are you ready to stop serving and start ruling? If hard work made people rich, slaves would have been kings. Most believe the oldest lie in the world. If I just dedicate myself more, one day I'll be wealthy. They think riches are a reward for sweat, for long hours and sacrifice. But open your eyes. Look around. The most dedicated workers in society are often the poorest. Construction workers destroy their bodies. Nurses work endless night shifts. Teachers give their souls to students, yet they struggle to pay rent. If effort were the key, they'd all be billionaires. Clearly, the system doesn't reward dedication, it rewards power. Machiavelli understood this hundreds of years ago. He said the man who works for another is always a servant, but the man who makes others work for him is always the master. Think about that. The poor trade time for money, but the rich trade influence for money. That's why a CEO can earn in one day what an employee earns in a year. Not because the CEO works harder, but because the CEO controls the system. This is the illusion of hard work. It's a trap designed to keep people submissive. Society tells you get a degree, get a job, put in 40 years, save what you can. But this path isn't wealth. It's survival. You hand over the best years of your life building someone else's empire, and in the end, you retire with just enough to survive. That's not freedom. That's a cage. And here's the psychology behind it. Humans are programmed to follow leaders, not equals. The reason wealthy people rise so fast is because they step into command positions. They project certainty, make bold moves, and others gather around them. People give their time, money, and trust to leaders who appear powerful. Once that flow begins, wealth multiplies. Meanwhile, the dedicated worker remains invisible. He clocks in, clocks out, hustles, sweats, but nobody follows him. Nobody invests in him, nobody will. He stays trapped in a cycle, thinking more hours will bring more money. But time is limited, and effort alone will never set him free. That's why most remain broke. They're trapped in the laborer's mindset. They believe that grinding harder will one day pay off. But the truth is, hard work without power only feeds the wealthy. Every hour worked builds the master's castle, not the servant's. So the first principle you must burn into your mind is this: hard work doesn't equal wealth, control does. If your decisions don't move money, you're still just a pawn. And pawns are sacrificed in every game. Look carefully at the wealthy. Do they work harder than the poor? No. They work differently. They focus on ownership, not labor. They focus on leverage, not sweat. And because of that, their rise is 10 times faster. The lesson here is brutal, but clear. Stop worshipping hard work as the path to riches. It's not. Hard work can keep you alive, but only power can make you rich. People think money rules the world, but look closer. Money itself obeys a master, and that master is power. Wherever power goes, money follows like a shadow. That's why the wealthy don't chase money, they chase control. When Machiavelli wrote The Prince, he wasn't talking about dollars or coins. He was talking about power. And centuries later, his insight still cuts deeper than any motivational quote you'll see online. Because here's the truth: the fastest path to wealth isn't stacking paychecks. It's building leverage. Think about it. The worker trades his sweat for a wage. The master trades his decisions for empires. The worker spends his life clocking in. The master spends his life pulling strings. Who do you think ends up on top? Here's the first mistake people make. They confuse effort with control. They say, if I just work harder, I'll get ahead. But you can double your hours, triple your dedication, and still be broke if you don't have leverage. Why? Because your labor is still chained to someone else's system. That's why the construction worker builds skyscrapers but can't live in them. That's why the nurse keeps hospitals running but barely pays her bills. They work harder than billionaires, yet wealth flows past them. Machiavelli would laugh at the idea that hard work equals riches. He'd say the man who works for another is always a servant. The man who makes others work for him is always a master. That's the brutal distinction. So what's the principle here? Simple. Control generates wealth. Let me show you how it works in real life. Imagine two men who open a restaurant. One becomes the chef, cooking from dawn till midnight. The other manages the systems, hires the staff, controls the brand. At first, the chef looks like the most dedicated worker. But years later, who's richer? The one who built the system. Why? Because power multiplies. Labor doesn't. That's why the wealthy don't just work. They position themselves. They buy influence. They control resources. They stand at the top of pyramids where hundreds or thousands of people move in response to their decisions. Now let's break this down with psychology. Humans are wired to follow leaders, not equals. When someone shows certainty and authority, others align behind them. They give loyalty, money, energy, even their time. And here's the twist. Once you control that flow, wealth doesn't just trickle in, it floods. But let's look at the consequence of getting it wrong. If you choose the safe path, if you play the game of work hard, save more, wait 40 years, you'll end up with nothing but exhaustion. That's not wealth. That's slavery dressed in comfort. You've traded your best years to build someone else's empire. You handed over your time, and in return, they gave you just enough to survive. That's why so many people retire broke. They spent their life in survival mode, never realizing survival was the trap. They thought they were winning, but in reality, they were just playing the wrong game. Machiavelli's wisdom flips the table. He tells us, don't ask, how do I make money? Ask, how do I gain power? Because once you have power, money follows automatically. Let's get practical. How do you build this kind of power? Own, don't rent. Stop thinking like a worker. Start thinking like an owner. Own a business, own assets, own attention. Ownership is the first step toward control. Influence perception. Machiavelli knew that appearances often matter more than truth. If people believe you're powerful, they'll treat you as powerful. That treatment itself attracts wealth. Reputation can enrich you faster than years of dedication. Cut the dead weight. If you're in a cage, get out. Don't waste decades proving yourself in an environment that will never reward you. Go where power is available. New industries, growing markets, unexplored spaces. Move boldly. Power doesn't come from waiting. It comes from striking first, acting decisively, and refusing to hesitate when opportunity knocks. When you start applying this, you'll notice something strange. The world begins to bend around you. Suddenly, you're not chasing money anymore. Money chases you. Investors approach, partners seek you out, opportunities appear where there were none before. But here's the warning, the rise isn't smooth. When you start gaining power, resistance follows. Envy, sabotage, betrayal, it all comes with the territory. Machiavelli would say this resistance isn't a problem, but proof. Proof that you've stepped into real power. Proof that you've stopped being invisible. And that's the point most people miss. They want wealth without power, comfort without risk. You can't separate the two. Fast wealth requires power, and power requires boldness. So the next time you catch yourself thinking, if I just work harder, I'll get ahead. Stop. That's the mindset of a servant. Instead, ask, how do I build control? How do I make my decisions move money, not my muscles? That's the mindset of a master. Because in the end, it's not the smartest man or the hardest worker who gets rich the fastest. It's the one who understands this law. Control generates wealth. Most wait. They wait for more money, more time, the perfect chance. But while they wait, the bold strike. And fortune, as Machiavelli warned us, doesn't reward the cautious. It belongs to the daring. Here's a bitter truth. Hesitation kills wealth. People think playing it safe will one day make them secure. But in reality, safety is just another word for slow death. Look at history. Empires, businesses, dynasties, none of them were built by cautious men. They were built by those who dared when others froze. Machiavelli compared fortune to a woman. He said she rewards the bold, the aggressive, those who act. What does that mean for you? It means wealth isn't polite. It doesn't wait at your door. You have to storm out and claim it before someone else does. Let's talk psychology. Why does boldness create riches? Because money follows certainty. When you act with conviction, even without all the answers, people assume you know what you're doing. They trust you. They follow you. They invest in you. Certainty is magnetic. Doubt repels. Now let's break down the common trap. People say, I'll start when I have more savings. I'll start when the economy is stable. I'll start when the timing is right. You've heard it. Maybe you've said it. But that waiting, that's the enemy. Opportunities don't wait for your comfort. By the time you're ready, the door is already closed. Think about any fortune made quickly. It wasn't luck, it was speed. Tech founders who launched before the wave hit. Investors who bought when others were scared. Leaders who seized moments that looked uncertain to everyone else. They didn't wait, they moved. Here's the consequence of waiting. Invisibility. If you hesitate, you blend into the crowd. You become just another face, another follower, another servant. Nobody invests in the cautious. Nobody bets on the timid. And when you finally act, it's too late. Someone bolder already claimed the prize. So what's the alternative? Build a bias for action. Create the habit of moving while others think. If an idea excites you, test it within 24 hours. Don't let hesitation suffocate your momentum. Second, learn to use fear as a signal. When you feel fear, it's not always a warning. Often it's proof that you're close to power. Bold players don't retreat when they feel fear. They act because of it. Third, position yourself in fast-moving arenas. Wealth doesn't grow in stagnant ponds. It explodes in fields like technology, finance, media, or industries, undergoing massive change. The faster the field, the faster the fortune, and finally strike before certainty. Most people wait until they're 100% sure. Bold people move when they're 60% sure because they know by the time they're ready, the window will be gone. Let me paint a picture. Imagine two men at the edge of a gold rush. One says, let's wait and study the land. Let's plan for the perfect spot. The other says, grab a shovel and start digging. Who ends up rich? The one who moved first. Even if he wasn't perfect, his speed beat the thinker's hesitation. Now let's go deeper. Why is boldness so rare? Because humans fear loss more than they crave gain. Psychologists call it loss aversion. The average man would rather avoid losing $100 than risk gaining $1,000. And that mindset is why most remain average. The wealthy flip it. They say, if I risk nothing, I gain nothing. If I lose, I'll recover. But if I win, I rise fast. That's why Machiavelli said, fortune is like a woman. She despises the timid. She chooses the man who shows force, who moves decisively, who doesn't ask permission. Let's get practical. How do you apply this? Act under pressure. Train yourself to move when the stakes feel high. That pressure sharpens decisions. Take asymmetric risks. Not all risks are equal. Find moves where your downside is small, but your upside is massive. That's how boldness becomes smart. Claim opportunities early. Whether it's an investment, a new skill, or a trend, move before the crowd. The first mover always wins bigger. Detach from approval. Bold action will bring criticism. People will call you reckless. That's a sign you're moving fast enough to be noticed. If nobody doubts you, you're invisible. When you practice this, something shifts. You start noticing how slow everyone else really is. You'll see them stuck in endless loops of hesitation while you're already on your second or third move. And once momentum builds, people can't catch up. But let's not sugarcoat it. Being bold is costly. You'll make mistakes. You'll lose sometimes. You'll face envy and attacks. But remember Machiavelli's warning, resistance is proof of your power. If nobody tries to stop you, you haven't risen far enough. At the advanced level, boldness isn't just about your own moves. It's about controlling the moves of others. Leaders don't just act boldly themselves. They inspire armies to move with them. They multiply their boldness through followers, teams, networks. That's how empires rise in record time. So here's the takeaway. Wealth loves speed, fortune favors the bold, and every moment you hesitate, someone is taking what could have been yours. The bold may stumble, but the cautious never rise. Most push with bare hands and wonder why nothing moves. The wealthy, they find a lever. With one push, they move mountains. That lever is called leverage, and it's the hidden engine of fast wealth. Here's a question. Why does one man struggle for decades while another seems to rise in a year? The answer is leverage. Leverage is how you make one move and get 10 results. It's the art of multiplying effort, money, and influence. Without it, you crawl, with it, you fly. Machiavelli understood this. He knew rulers never fought battles alone. They used alliances, armies, fear, and reputation as levers to extend their power. And the same principle applies to wealth today. Let's break it down. There are 4 main types of leverage: money, people, knowledge, and attention. First, money leverage. The poor say, I can't start until I save enough. The wealthy say, whose money can I use? They use loans, investors, and partnerships as fuel. They understand that money is a soldier. It moves when commanded. If you fear it, it serves someone else. If you command it, it builds your empire. Second, people leverage. Alone you move like a snail. With others you move like a storm. Look at kings, CEOs, influencers. They didn't rise alone. They inspired armies, teams, and followers to act in ways that multiplied their vision. If you can recruit, persuade, and direct others, you've accessed the fastest form of growth. Third, knowledge leverage. It's not just what you know, it's what you know before others. Think of investors who spotted tech before it exploded, or rulers who struck alliances before enemies noticed. Knowledge used early is a weapon. It gives you an edge while everyone else is still blind. Fourth, attention leverage. This is the new king of wealth. Attention is money. Control how people see you, and you control their choices, their trust, their wallets. That's why influencers, brands, and leaders rise so fast. Attention converts into partnerships, sales, and opportunities. Now here's the common mistake. The average man tries to do everything alone. He says, I'll work harder, save more, learn everything myself. But Machiavelli would call this weakness. The man who insists on moving alone moves like a farmer dragging a plow. The man who uses leverage moves like a general commanding an army. Let's use psychology. Humans are drawn to strength. When they see someone moving with vision, they want to join. That's why leverage grows on itself. Once people believe you're rising, they push you even higher. That momentum is impossible to create alone. But what happens if you ignore leverage? You burn out. You spend years grinding while someone younger, less skilled and bolder passes you in months. You watch them rise and think they're lucky, but they're not. They have leverage. So what's the alternative? Shift your mindset from how do I do this to who or what can help me do this faster. That single change takes you from worker to commander. Here are some practical tactics. Use other people's money. Don't fear debt or investment. If the move is calculated, capital can make you rich faster than saving ever will. Build alliances. Sometimes teaming up beats going solo. Share power now, expand later. Invest in the right knowledge. Don't just consume random content. Learn what gives you an unfair edge. Capture attention, speak, post, network, build your brand. If nobody knows your name, nobody pays you. When you apply this, you'll notice something strange. Suddenly, your moves create bigger ripples. People start calling you instead of you chasing them. Investors, clients, partners. They see your momentum and want in. But here's the Machiavellian twist. The higher you climb with leverage, the faster enemies appear. Rivals will resent your speed. Old friends may envy your rise. Competitors will try to sabotage you. That's the price of fast growth. Machiavelli warned, power attracts resistance. If nobody's trying to stop you, you're not moving fast enough. At the advanced level, leverage isn't just about tools, it's about perception. Machiavelli said appearances often matter more than truth. If you appear powerful, people treat you as powerful. That treatment itself becomes leverage. That's why reputation is worth more than raw effort. A strong brand can move mountains that raw skill never could. So here's the end game. Imagine you control money through investors, people through teams, knowledge through insight, and attention through influence. What happens? You don't just rise, you become untouchable. You've built a fortress. Others depend on you, others need. And when they need you more than you need them, you've already won. That's the Machiavellian path. Not slow, cautious wealth, but fast, leveraged power. And once you step onto it, you'll realize why the wealthy never play the workers' game. They never pushed with bare hands, they always used the lever. So remember this. The difference between moving like a snail and moving like a storm comes down to one thing: leverage. Find your lever and the world will move for you. Getting rich is easy. Staying rich and being remembered long after you're gone. That's the real game. Wealth fades, but legacy is the ultimate currency. Every empire, every fortune, every dynasty faces the same question. Will it survive the man who built it? Most don't think beyond getting rich. But history shows us getting rich is only half the battle. The true masters, the Machiavellian minds, don't just chase wealth, they build legacy. Machiavelli knew this well. He observed rulers who rose quickly but vanished just as fast. Why? Because they built their power on weak foundations, on luck, on temporary fortune, or on personal charisma that died with them. The ones who endured were different. They created systems, symbols, and stories that survived their own bodies. Think about the dynasties that lasted centuries. Think about billionaires whose names became brands, not just bank accounts. That's not wealth anymore. That's legacy. And legacy is what makes your power immortal. Let's break this into layers. First, legacy of systems. If your empire depends only on you, it collapses when you fall. But if you build systems, business structures, loyal networks, institutions, those systems keep producing long after you're gone. The king dies, but the throne continues. The CEO resigns, but the company still grows. That's the foundation of lasting wealth. Second, legacy of knowledge. Rulers write laws, leaders write books, entrepreneurs create blueprints. Knowledge passed forward is a weapon sharpened for the next generation. When you control not just the present, but the minds of the future, your power multiplies across time. Third, legacy of image. Machiavelli emphasized the power of perception. He knew that how people remember you matters more than who you really were. Reputation survives reality. Think about it. We still talk about Caesar, Alexander, Rockefeller, Jobs, not just for their money, but for the images they carved into history. Fourth, legacy of influence. True wealth isn't about how much you own, it's about how many lives are shaped by your existence. That could be through businesses that employ millions, ideas that reshape culture, or movements that survive your name. Influence is wealth converted into eternity. Now here's the trap. The small-minded chase quick cash. They spend on luxuries, trying to look rich instead of building something lasting. The bold build empires, but the wise build empires that survive them. Psychologically, humans crave immortality. But bodies die, fortunes decay, palaces crumble. Legacy is the closest thing to eternity. That's why rulers carve statues, brands name skyscrapers, and men fight wars so names will be remembered. But here's the Machiavellian truth. Legacy isn't about morality. Some rulers are remembered as heroes, some as tyrants. Both are remembered because they were powerful enough to leave a mark. History doesn't ask if you were nice, it asks if you mattered. So how do you build legacy in your own life? Stop thinking small. If your only goal is to pay bills, you'll never rise above survival. Think in decades, not days. Build systems, businesses, investments, teams, structures that live without you. Protect your name. Your reputation is leverage that lasts longer than money. Guard it, shape it, use it, pass knowledge, teach, write, record, build blueprints others can use. That's how your ideas live on. Multiply influence. Connect your wealth to something bigger than yourself. Movements, culture, industries. At the highest level, legacy isn't about being remembered fondly. It's about being remembered powerfully. Machiavelli himself was feared, criticized, even hated in his time. But centuries later, his name still shapes how rulers and strategists think. That's legacy. Here's the paradox. You die twice. Once when your body is buried, and again when your name is spoken for the last time. The wealthy die once, the powerful die twice, but slowly. And those who built legacy, they never really die. So the final lesson is this: don't just chase fast wealth. Don't just build an empire. Build something that bends time itself. Build systems, knowledge, image, and influence that echo beyond your years. That's the Machiavellian way. Because in the end, the poor leave behind memories, the wealthy leave behind money, but the powerful, they leave behind history. You've just walked through the true laws of power and accelerated wealth, laws that most never dare to face. Remember, fortune doesn't wait, power doesn't apologize, and legacy doesn't forgive the timid. The choice is yours. Remain safe and invisible, or enter the game where history remembers your name. If this opened your eyes, then get ready, because in the next chapter, we go even deeper into the shadows of human desire and power. The three unbreakable truths: control, not effort, creates wealth. Every hour you trade for money is an hour that builds someone else's empire. Shift from executor to commander, from worker to owner, from muscle to mind. Speed beats perfection. While others plan, you act. While others hesitate, you conquer. While others wait for certainty, you're already 3 moves ahead. Opportunity doesn't knock twice on the same door. Leverage is the only real multiplier. You alone have limits. But you, with other people's money, with a team, with exclusive knowledge, with massive attention, you become an unstoppable force. Stop pushing stones. Find the lever that moves mountains. The final test. Ask yourself right now, in this exact moment, do your daily actions build your empire or someone else's? Do your decisions move money, or does only your body move? Are you accumulating power or just accumulating tasks? If the answer bothers you, good. Discomfort is the first sign of awakening. The question now isn't whether you know these truths. You do. The question is, will you have the courage to act according to them? Machiavelli didn't write to entertain. He wrote to arm minds with the raw truth of power. And the truth is this: the world doesn't reward the kind, the patient, or the obedient. It rewards the strategic, the bold, those who understand that power and wealth follow immutable laws. You can reject these laws. You can pretend they don't exist. You can cling to the comfortable illusion that hard work and honesty will eventually take you to the top. But while you cling to that fantasy, others, less talented, less experienced, but infinitely more strategic, will be building empires on the principles you just read. Start today, not tomorrow, not when conditions are better. Today, identify an area where you can build control instead of just executing. Find a lever, money, people, knowledge, attention that you can start mobilizing. Make a bold move that you've been postponing out of fear, out of doubt, out of seeking approval. And then watch. Watch how the world responds differently when you act with the mindset of a master instead of a servant. Watch how opportunities appear when you project certainty instead of hesitation. Watch how wealth flows toward power, not toward effort. But be warned, this path isn't for everyone. It requires you to abandon comfortable illusions. It demands that you face resistance, envy, and even betrayal. It requires you to make decisions that others will judge, that you act when others wait, that you claim power when others ask permission. If you're not prepared for that, don't enter this game. Return to safety, to obedience, to the illusion that being a good worker will eventually reward you. There's no shame in choosing peace instead of power, but if you're ready, truly ready, to play the game as it really is, not as you wish it were, then welcome. Welcome to the world where control surpasses effort, where boldness surpasses caution, where leverage multiplies results, and where legacy transcends life. 10 years from now, when you look back, will you see a decade of servitude disguised as security? Or will you see an empire you built, a legacy you established, a name you transformed into a synonym for power? The answer depends entirely on the choice you make now. Not tomorrow, not next week. Now. So what will it be? Will you continue serving or will you start ruling? Fortune is waiting, but not for long. The world is divided into two types of people: those who react to life and those who create it, those who wait for permission and those who seize authority, those who follow the path laid out for them and those who carve their own destiny into stone. Right now, in this very moment, you stand at a crossroads. And make no mistake, this isn't just another motivational moment that fades by tomorrow. This is the moment where you decide which side of history you'll occupy. Because here's what nobody tells you. The game is already being played. Every single day, every single hour, power is being redistributed. Wealth is flowing from the hesitant to the decisive. Opportunities are being claimed by those bold enough to reach out and take them. And while you've been reading these words, someone somewhere just made a move that will change their life forever. The question isn't whether the game exists. The question is whether you're going to play it or be played by it. Think about the people you admire, the ones who built something from nothing, the ones whose names carry weight, the ones who seem to bend reality to their will. Do you think they stumbled into that position? Do you think they waited for the perfect moment? Do you think they asked for permission? No. They saw the laws of power clearly. They understood that wealth follows control. They recognized that fortune favors speed over perfection. They grasped that leverage multiplies everything, and most importantly, they acted on that knowledge while others were still thinking about it. And here's the part that should terrify you. They weren't more talented than you. They weren't more intelligent. They weren't blessed with some magical advantage. They simply understood the game and played it without apology. Machiavelli wrote The Prince over 500 years ago, and it's still relevant today. Why? Because human nature doesn't change. The principles of power don't evolve. The laws that governed wealth in Renaissance Italy govern it in modern America. The tactics that built empires then build fortunes now. The only difference is the speed. Today you can build in months what used to take years. You can reach millions where you once reached thousands. You can leverage technology, capital, and attention in ways that would have seemed like magic to previous generations. But that speed cuts both ways. It means opportunity moves faster. It means competition is fiercer. It means the window between seeing a chance and losing it has shrunk to almost nothing. Hesitation that once cost you days now costs you everything. So let's get brutally honest about where you are right now. Look at your current trajectory. If nothing changes, where will you be in 5 years? In 10 years? Will you have built something meaningful? Or will you still be trading time for money, still be waiting for your moment, still be hoping that hard work alone will somehow magically transform into wealth? Because hope isn't a strategy, wishing isn't a plan, and believing that the world will eventually reward your good intentions is a fantasy that keeps millions of people trapped in mediocrity. The uncomfortable truth is this: nobody is coming to save you. No perfect opportunity is going to fall into your lap. No fairy godmother is going to wave a wand and grant you wealth. The only person who can change your position is you, and the only time you can do it is now. Let's talk about what's really holding you back. It's not lack of knowledge. You know more than enough to start. It's not lack of resources. People have built empires with far less than you currently have. It's not even lack of opportunity. Opportunities are everywhere. You're just not trained to see them. What's holding you back is fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of taking responsibility for your own rise, fear of stepping out of the comfortable cage you've built around yourself. And that fear is justified because once you step into this game, there's no going back. Once you taste real power, once you experience what it's like to have your decisions move money instead of just your body, once you build something that grows without you, you can never return to the mindset of a servant. But here's what fear won't tell you. The pain of regret is far worse than the pain of failure. 10 years from now, you won't regret the things you tried and failed at. You'll regret the things you never attempted. You'll regret the opportunities you saw, but were too afraid to seize. You'll regret the moments when fortune was within reach and you chose safety instead. Machiavelli observed that fortune is like a river. When it's calm, you can build banks and channels to direct it. But when it floods, it destroys everything in its path. The same is true of opportunity. Right now, while you're reading this, you have the chance to build your channels, to position yourself, to prepare for the flood of wealth that comes to those who are ready. But if you wait, if you hesitate, if you let fear paralyze you, that same opportunity will flow past you and drown you instead of lifting you. So here's what you need to do right now, not later, not when you feel ready, but right now. Identify one area where you're currently trading time for money and ask yourself how you could build control instead. Identify one lever you're not using, money, people, knowledge, or attention, and ask yourself how you could start mobilizing it today. Identify one bold move you've been avoiding and ask yourself what would happen if you made it within the next 24 hours. And then do it. Not perfectly, not cautiously, not after you've thought about it for another week. Do it now with whatever you have, wherever you are. Because here's the secret that separates those who rise from those who remain stuck. Action creates clarity. You don't need to see the entire staircase to take the first step. You don't need to have all the answers before you make the first move. You just need to start, and the path reveals itself as you walk it. Every empire started with a single decision. Every fortune began with a single bold move. Every legacy was built on a foundation of action taken when others were still planning. And the beautiful irony is this: once you start moving, once you begin accumulating small wins, once you taste what it's like to see your decisions create results, momentum takes over. Success builds on success. Power attracts power. Wealth flows toward wealth. But it all starts with that first step, that first moment when you decide you're done being a spectator and ready to become a player. That first instance when you choose power over comfort, action over safety, and boldness over hesitation. Now let me tell you what happens to those who don't take that step. They stay exactly where they are. They watch others rise while they make excuses. They see opportunities go to people less qualified, but more decisive. They spend their lives wondering what could have been instead of living what is. And worst of all, they convince themselves it's not their fault. They blame the economy. They blame their circumstances. They blame luck. They blame everything except the one thing they can control, their own decisions. But you're different. You've read this far, which means something in you recognizes the truth in these words. Something in you knows you're capable of more. Something in you is tired of playing small and ready to claim what's yours. The only question is whether that something is strong enough to overcome your fear. Whether that voice inside you that says you deserve more is louder than the voice that says stay safe. Whether your desire for power and wealth and legacy is greater than your attachment to comfort and approval. Because let me be clear, you can't have both. You can't stay safe and build an empire. You can't please everyone and accumulate power. You can't avoid criticism and create a legacy. The path to wealth and influence requires you to make choices that others won't understand, to take risks that others won't take, to persist when others quit. But here's what makes it all worthwhile. Freedom. Real freedom. Not the illusion of freedom that comes from a steady paycheck and a comfortable routine, but the actual freedom to control your time, to build what you want, to live life on your terms, to leave a mark that lasts beyond your lifetime. That freedom is available to you. It's not reserved for the lucky or the chosen. It's available to anyone willing to understand the laws of power and act on them without hesitation. Machiavelli's greatest insight wasn't that power is important. Everyone knows that. His greatest insight was that power follows predictable laws, and anyone who understands and applies those laws can rise regardless of their starting position. You don't need permission. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need ideal circumstances. You just need to understand that control beats effort, that speed beats perfection, that leverage multiplies results, and that legacy transcends mortality. And then you need to act on that understanding. Today, right now, this very moment, because fortune is waiting, but she's impatient. She doesn't reward those who hesitate. She doesn't bless those who wait for permission. She gives herself fully to those who seize her without apology. So I'll ask you one final time. Are you ready to stop serving and start ruling? Are you ready to stop building someone else's empire and start building your own? Are you ready to stop trading time for money and start making your decisions move mountains? The game is already being played. The only question is whether you're going to watch from the sidelines or step onto the field. Choose now. Act now. Rise now. Because 10 years from now, you'll either look back at this moment as the day everything changed, or as another missed opportunity in a life full of them. The choice is yours, but choose quickly. Fortune doesn't wait, and neither should you. Tenta novamente.